Now, I've always been a huge sucker for horror as a genre, for about as long as I can remember. Ever since I saw my first scary movie, I couldn't get enough of it, even if the zombies menu from Black Ops 2 was enough to scare the piss out of me as a child. I would also consider myself a gamer of sorts, and I've played quite a few horror games in my time, from genre-defining juggernauts to lesser-known indie titles. As great as the single-player horror experience is, I've always been big on multiplayer games, so whenever I hear of one that's not only fun, but delivers on the spooks, I can't help but harass my friends to give it a shot, and harass them I did. One of the first experiences I've had with multiplayer horror games was Dead by Daylight. For those of you who don't know, DBD is a co-op survival horror game where 4 survivors are tasked with escaping various locations by repairing generators or jumping through hatches, as well as being pit against one of the many player-controlled killers the game has to offer, or just getting the same one depending on the current meta. But do you want to know what's impossible to escape, no matter how many insta-heal medkits and maxed out toolboxes you might be running? YouTubers reminding you to subscribe to them and turn on the notifications. All of these things you should be doing right now, by the way. Now, while the game certainly is fun, its fear factor definitely lessens as you become more adept with its mechanics. I guess you can argue that with most things, but it feels even more apparent with this game. Of course, it can still deliver on those tense moments, but I found that there were 2 other games that managed to deliver on the spooks more often and more effectively than DBD, even after countless play sessions. To start off with a game incredibly similar to Dead by Daylight, there's Friday the 13th, the game based on, well, the movie, Friday the 13th. Similarly to DBD, you have a group of campers attempting to escape a player-controlled Jason within the different campsites. This is done by repairing vehicles, successfully calling the cops, or by killing Jason. Which I do not recommend, because it is so hard I honestly have no idea how anyone can pull it off legit. The devs also decided to add the space station from Jason X as a map, which, similar to the movie, let's just pretend it doesn't exist. Now, where I believe the game delivers on better scares is through its built-in proximity voice chat. This almost completely cuts off your communication with your teammates that aren't within your direct vicinity, which is a near requirement for games like this, given you can find a walkie-talkie to communicate with others lucky enough to find one, but you do have to get lucky. The bigger maps paired with only being able to communicate with those nearby you leads to the game creating a stronger sense of isolation than a title like DBD that allows for the constant ability to give callouts, given you can just sit in your Xbox party or Discord call while playing, but come on, what's the fun in that? While finding someone else and being able to properly sort out a means of escape can be reassuring, talking too much also acts as a double-edged sword, because whoever is playing Jason can also hear you whenever he is nearby, and even talk to you. Whether that part is scary is more up to whoever's playing Jason. So, while being able to sort out a plan with your fellow campers is imperative, you always have to be careful when talking, because you might just be unlucky enough to have Jason strolling by your cabin you two are hiding in, giving away your position, and given how hard it is to actually escape Jason, it could very likely lead to one of you two dying in the process. Despite all the praise I'm giving Friday, I still think DBD is a more enjoyable experience overall, even if they still haven't added Springtrap.
I always come.
The main reason I've shown Friday more favoritism in this video is that, despite having similar playtimes in both games, I still found myself getting consistently scared as compared to Dead by Daylight. Sadly, Friday struggles with needing to have both the campers and Jason be in comms, which in a public game can be really hard to pull off due to how large the actual lobby size is. If only there was a game that had a smaller lobby size, used proximity chat, scared the piss out of me, and was consistently fun. Oh wait, there is. And that honor would have to go to a little game called Phasmophobia. Now, for those of you who don't know, Phasmophobia is a game where you and up to 4 friends get to take up the mantle of paranormal investigating. Said investigations take place within different haunting grounds, where you and your crew are tasked with looking for clues in order to figure out which one of the 24 ghosts has come out of hiding to haunt your local Denny's. On top of this, the game even throws a few side objectives your way. Its inclusion of proximity chat is similar to Friday's, apart from always having a walkie-talkie on you instead of having to find one. While that definitely takes away from the isolation aspect that horror has to offer, it would be harder to implement anyways due to the overall smaller maps, unless we are talking about the 3 most nightmarish maps to investigate. Seriously, I do not think I have played on the prison or the school once without having at least half of my team die before we can even make it to the ghost room. Its use of proximity chat, unlike Friday, is a near requirement for the game, because you oftentimes have to speak directly to the ghost to gather the necessary info to find out what flavor of ghoul you're dealing with. Although, this feature can also lead to your undoing, because if you make a sound while the ghost is on the hunt, you might just seal your own fate. This also almost guarantees your friends will have a photo sesh with your fresh corpse. But why is it that these games feel scarier to me than a game like Dead by Daylight? Well, I believe that it's because of the 2 core aspects that horror is built upon. The absence of information, like hearing a loud sound and not knowing what caused it, or the absence of action, like think OG FNAF, where you're fixed into one spot. For a game like Dead by Daylight, it struggles with both of these, since a core aspect of the game is communicating with your team as to the exact position of the killer. Like it's a game of Valorant and you're trying to catch the enemy chamber peek C-long on Haven with his ult. Not to mention the killer's terror radius, which acts as an alarm bell if they get too close to a survivor. Sure, the game can be tense, but as it stands, DBD just doesn't feel as if it delivers on being a horror game, and ultimately feels as if it's a multiplayer game with horror elements integrated into it. And still no Springtrap. While games like Friday and Faz have a way to limit that access to information, and from a gameplay standpoint, I get the effectiveness of something like a terror radius. Even Friday makes use of it in a way. The game design just makes Jason a much more imposing threat than the killers, making that warning bell filled with more dread than something like what DBD has to offer. While the absence of action is most certainly present within all of these games, only being able to hide from the killers within the given environment, or slowing them down temporarily with a weapon, or pallet looping the poor bastard. And again, I know you can technically kill Jason, but it is literally so hard. You would probably have an easier time grabbing the IP of the guy who's playing Jason, tracking him down, and rudely shutting off his console than you would killing this stupid bitch. Now, the reason I haven't really been using Phasmophobia for any of these comparisons is that it's honestly just a really different game from the other two, with its biggest similarity being that it's a multiplayer horror game. It's definitely been the game that's managed to scare the piss out of me the most within this trio. I still refuse to go into the ghost room alone with a spirit box, even after all my 40 plus hours of playtime. Phasmophobia may not be too similar to Dead by Daylight or Friday the 13th, but that allows for it to stand out from the others and provide a more unique experience. Since the way the game is played out, to really get anything done, you are essentially forced to anger the ghost and risk being hunted at the cost of much needed intel or doing a side objective. Unlike the other two, where, while unlikely, you could go the entire match without ever seeing a killer or Jason. The game provides many ways for you to figure out key details that will allow you to figure out what ghost it is through your equipment, which you are limited to only 3 items at a time, making communication and coordination imperative. Of course, the game also allows for other means of communing with the dead, through cursed items such as voodoo dolls, tarot cards, and, as my script likes correcting it to, Luigi boards. These items are kind of a high risk, high reward, because if using them goes wrong in any way, a hunt is guaranteed to begin. Dealing with your newly angered spooky specters even more limited than the other two. Your main measures of defense only being useful to prevent the hunt from starting in the first place, with your only option of defense during the hunt being a bundle of sticks that takes up half of your inventory. That might stun the ghost for a picosecond if you get lucky. After all, this isn't New Londo Ruins. You can't just huff some wax and then perform fisticuffs with your local pack of ghouls. Your most reliable option left is hiding in fear, pissing yourself whenever you hear footsteps, or your friends beatboxing over the radio. Or in my case, I played Sans' theme while my friends were being brutally picked off one by one. One of my personal favorite features of proximity chat in Phasmophobia is how easy it is to fool some people just by going to the other side of the house you are investigating and whispering into the mic to trick your friends into thinking the ghost is talking to them. You'd be surprised how often this works. Despite how easy it is to use features like proximity chat to mess with people, that really doesn't take away from how horrifying it can be with proper implementation. It really feels as if a game like Phasmophobia has done an outstanding job in doing so, only being beaten by that one game you see streamers cowering over, but that doesn't fit the main criteria for this video, you know, it being a multiplayer game. So it can stay in Streamerland for now. Of course, if you love a game like Dead by Daylight, and it consistently has you scared shitless, more power to you. I honestly wish I could say the same. In the end, this is just what I found throughout the years of playing these games, and I wanted to share it with you guys. This would be the part where I'd play an end title card, but I don't really have one yet, so...